Here comes everybody.
Awesome, awesome.
Hello, everybody. Let's give everybody a couple of more minutes to get here.
Happy Wednesday, February 12th. That means we are nearly 50% of the way through with the month of February.
Ooh.
How's
And
everybody feeling about that?
today is Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
All right. Fun
Did you?
fact.
Fun fact. The reason why I remember that is because it's also my mom's birthday.
There you go.
So
Ah,
My
makes it a
dad's
little easier.
my dad's is Groundhog Day. That's how I remember that one.
That
So
is
yeah.
great.
Tammy, any big plans for the weekend? It is Valentine's weekend in case that is not on your radar.
it's on my radar. It's my mom's birthday, and so I'm getting together with my mom and all of my sisters, and we're gonna do lunch and visit and just have a girls' good time this weekend.
I actually love that so much. Thank you for sharing that with us. Liz?
You guys, we have got a great webinar for you guys today. We have the famous Liz Scott with us. I'm sure most of you know her by now. We've had her on a couple of times. If you ever attend Scaling New Heights, you'll see her in the cutest outfits just bopping around, or in some of the breakfasts or live on stage sessions in the afternoon. She is also the co-host of Happy Hour. And we are super excited to have her here today to talk with Sam and Tammy, our Director of Cybersecurity, about how AI in the accounting space is going to affect us coming up in the couple of years, or well, in this year, actually, it's already
I
affecting.
know. That's right.
That's big news.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for those introductions, Mandy. And yeah, we're stoked to be here. So we've got some awesome content, and it's always great to have Liz on because she brings such great insight from the industry. And we've got Tammy, which is awesome because she brings all that insight from cybersecurity. And I'm just happy that they let me tag along, honestly. So we'll talk about how AI is impacting, kind of shifting some things in accounting. It might be some stuff you resonate with. It might be some stuff that's brand new to you that you want to go explore. We're going to talk about how AI is helping Tammy's team defend against some attacks. And then we're going to go through some really practical strategies, low-hanging fruit, and then maybe some more sophisticated stuff that if you've already done the low-hanging fruit things, you might be ready to start building out that roadmap for some even better layers to add to your cybersecurity strategy. We'll close it out with some trends and insights, and then open it up for some Q&A. So just a bit of housekeeping. Feel free to use that Q&A. Do we have a Q&A enabled, or I don't see? Hold, please. Yes, we do have a Q&A. So feel free to use that. Post your questions. We'll get to them kind of throughout the hour, or we'll save them to the very end if it makes sense to just really spotlight it. So with that, let's kick it off.
I love the questions, so I'm going to be watching some of those that roll in. So any of the questions that you've got for me, feel free to share them, and I'll try to answer as I can. I love this conversation that we're having about AI. And, we're talking about AI today from two different angles. One of them is, what is it doing for accountants? And in that profession, we're seeing a whole lot of tools that are utilizing AI. And I'm excited because, one of the things that we get to do is, I've got several different firms. One of them is a accounting bookkeeping firm, and we're doing some of the AI implementations of the tools that are out there. But then the other side of this conversation that we're having today is, what are the dangers of AI, and what do we need to be thinking about and making sure that we've got in place? So I think it's a great place that accountants need to be paying attention to. I love talking at the conferences about what I'm seeing, and AI in accounting is a big, big thing that a lot of us are very aware of. And, Sam, you and I've had the conversation about the adoption rate of AI is incredible. So in the accounting industry, we've got AI that is doing data review. So that machine learning that's able to help us with automating transaction entry into the bookkeeping. So that's a place that we're seeing AI. The other place that we're seeing a big trend with a lot of the apps that are out there is the business analytics. So moving into a place of advisory services, that's an area that for a long time, whenever I've traveled and I've listened to my peers, they've said, yes, we get that we should be in this advisory space, but how, what am I supposed to advise my client on? What if I get it wrong? And it's interesting because that's where I see a lot of AI influence in these apps. So they're doing a nice job of helping you to say and give you kind of like a script of what to say to your clients whenever it comes to making forecasts, budgets, any type of business models that your client needs to be thinking about. So you've got this layered effect that's happening. You've got to have really good bookkeeping. So you've got AI that is now empowering some of that bookkeeping. And then you've got AI that is then helping you to, once the bookkeeping is entered, then do some analysis of that data so that way you can offer some advisory services. And then the other thing that's on here that I'm seeing AI being an area for accountants to offer advisory services is the digital part of it. So technology integrations, whether that's apps, whether that's teaching your clients about AI. So some of the tools that are out there for businesses have got AI incorporated in them. And then lastly, this other thing about cybersecurity. So what kinds of risks do they need to avoid? And we're going to be talking about more of that because I think that there's a growing area for accountants specifically to be teaching our clients about cybersecurity and why that matters. So, the IRS has done a couple of things to really push accountants towards having WISP in place. But, why? So I can't wait to dive into some areas of why.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this a lot, Liz, and oftentimes a small business, the only person advising them on anything about their business is their accountant. It is their bookkeeper that's helping them to keep their business afloat. And so this is just an extension of that you just brought up. And then the second thing that I have is I was thinking back to 2 years ago. I think I could only name like 3 apps that had any sort of AI that were built into them that were integrated in the ecosystem. And now, I mean, I can't even count the number that have implemented it.
That is so true. And that's the thing that's fun about right now is we have a very small firm. And so it allows us to be quite nimble with implementing a lot of these AI tools that are out there in the accounting industry to try them out. So,
You've always been big at experimentation, and I've loved that. So yeah, talk to us about what you're doing.
Well, I am talking about experimentation. Whenever it comes to technology, I have to say I'm quick to pull the trigger. And part of that is implementing it. Let's adopt it. Let's see if we like it. First off the bat, we're looking at what do we like about that technology. And then I'm quick to pull it. So if it's not working for us, let's cut it. So I'm going to move from left to right. And I think that this is kind of a fun way to share, what's happening in the firm and what we're using. But workflow. So there's a lot of tools that are out there that are including AI inside of their workflow practice management, whatever it is that you're calling it. They've got a lot of similarities and overlapping there. But we use Monday.com. We adopted that pretty early on, and we've tested a bunch of other workflow tools. Monday.com is not accounting or bookkeeping specific, but we were able to have a lot of integrations in it. So we can do a lot of workflows. One of the things that I'm seeing in some of the other tools that are out there is like Carbon is a accounting specific workflow tool. And you can say to Carbon, I enter my client's bookkeeping on Tuesday, and I want you to create a workflow that lets me make sure that I'm telling the bookkeepers to have a standard of operations to enter those bank feeds and to code them and then pull some reports or whatnot. So a lot of the tools that are out there inside of workflow are including AI inside of those tools. I'm going to jump over to the left over to Copilot. And this one, Sam, you and I have had a conversation about Copilot many a times. So one of the things that we did inside of Accounting Lifeline is we implemented Microsoft. So we moved off of Google and into Microsoft, and that allowed us to have more of this closed system. So for those of you who are not familiar with Copilot, it's like ChatGPT, except for one of the biggest differences in why we choose Copilot most of the time over ChatGPT is because it's able to look at other things that are happening in our operating system. So maybe we want to draft an email to a client, but it's based off of a document conversation that we've already had. So Copilot can actually see that document that's in Word inside of our operating system, and it can actually draft that email based on that document. I know, Sam, you're a fan of Copilot. Are you using it for various things too?
Yeah, creation. So I'll often draft, I'll just sort of brain dump what I need to talk about for maybe it's a speaking engagement, maybe it's a training exercise, and then I'll use PowerPoint to look at that Word document and just sort of get me a straw man that I can tune from there. I also use it in Excel quite a bit to look at tables of data and get it to bring me some insights, because it'll do coding in Python. I don't know how to use Python, but I know how to use Copilot, right? And so Copilot will use Python to present me some really insightful graphs and charts and things like that. So I use it in those ways. Transcripts like you have listed here, that's been incredibly helpful. Summarizing really long email chains, you know the ones I'm talking about. The ones that should have been a meeting. So Copilot helps me there. But I think that, Tammy, from a security perspective, what are some good practices around adoption?
Yeah, so I think it's, knowing your data, what you have on your network, what types of data you're storing, what it contains. And like you said, just kind of using it responsibly, right? The ones that integrate with your applications, you want to make sure that it's either a closed system or the vendor is making sure that they keep your data in their own systems, right? You don't want to be training in the wild and having your client data, training all of the other models out there. So, and like I use Copilot to kind of give me a starter. And then I go from there, right? You kind of have to use a lot of your own judgment with it, but it will give you that good running start, give you a great outline, and then from there you can add your own information.
I love that you brought up the training piece, and so Liz, one of the things that Copilot gives you that we've talked about is that corporate data protection, unlike some of those other GPT-like models. So it's built on GPT, but it is protecting your corporate data.
Well, and I love that because, Tammy, one of the things that you said was that closed system. So that idea of, ChatGPT, you're in this kind of, you're all contributing to this data lake of information. And so whenever you're having conversations with ChatGPT, because that's kind of in a sense what you're doing is having this back and forth dialogue, you're pulling from lots of mass information. But in Copilot, like you said, that's a closed system. And the thing that's cool about it in our environment is that we're able to access amongst the organization different documents, like you were saying, Sam. PowerPoints. I would say most accountants, if you're going to create a PowerPoint for a client or a scenario, Copilot has got some features in there that you can create a pretty solid PowerPoint, and it might be a start. You might do some designer, because there's designer inside of
it could make you look really good.
Right? Well, and it's because it's pulling from your organization information, and it's not pulling from a wealth of just everybody's information. You're actually getting more targeted into the direct message that you're wanting to convey.
Like and you're training it on your own data.
Yeah. We could probably have an entire session just dedicated to like some prompting best practices and getting most out of your prompts. But yeah.
And the more you use it, the more you're going to develop, your own prompts and what works for you. Experiment a little, see what you get, as a response when you ask a question. just rewording it can give you a whole nother set of responses.
So true. Okay, so moving on in my AI tech stack. So Aider AI, this is a tool that I came across at ZeroCon, that was back in Nashville in June. So Sam and Mandy, you were both there. It was awesome, the ZeroCon experience. But Aider AI had been an app that I'd been watching on social, and I've been watching it in media feeds, just trying to really follow along with what they were doing because it's very cutting edge. So whenever I was talking about earlier that predictive analytics and the business forecasting, that's where Aider is coming into play, and they're doing some really cool things by taking the data that is inside of your QuickBooks or Xero, and then looking at that data and creating those executive summaries, creating the action plans. So whenever I hear my peers say, I don't know where to jump into this advisory role, well, tools like Aider AI are allowing you to be that expert, but it's giving you some of the prompts in order to go and talk to your clients. Some of the things that Aider AI is doing that's very forward leaning, and why I picked them over some of the other tools, is they're implementing some features that allow you to take a snapshot of you as the accountant or bookkeeper and then turn that into video dialogue that then you can share with your clients. And so why I think that's super cool is, it's a sign of where we're at. One of the things that we struggle with our clients is trying to get them to work with us and read those financial reports, right? They can't get better unless they understand what's happening in their business. And sometimes our clients won't even show up to those meetings. So I love this idea of, you don't have to be the one who's teaching your client. You can actually allow AI to have, conversations. So taking that executive summary, pulling that into a video. There's even a bot feature inside of Aider AI, so you can chat and you can ask questions. So that way, what I hear from clients is they don't want to ask stupid questions, but if you're asking a bot, it really removes that piece of it that, makes a lot of clients feel like they're incapable of asking smart questions. And
You're
then you can
gonna have
always
to show
schedule a
that one to
meeting
me.
with your accountants. What are you saying, Sam?
You're gonna have to show that one to me sometime.
It's one of those that on this list here that we have found, and we're super excited about. We're just in that new phase of implementation, so we're more to come on that one.
Has there been an happy hour on that one yet?
Not yet. Nope.
Okay.
But I'm going to be speaking at several conferences really about this AI driven tech stack, because that's the whole purpose of having Accounting Lifeline, is I want to be able to test and share.
Yeah.
And part of that test is BotKeeper. So there's a lot of tools out there that are promoting having a lot of AI functionality in the transaction automation. One of the reasons why accountants and bookkeepers are so bogged down is there's a lot of data that we have to process and do something with. So BotKeeper's claim is to be able to take those transactions, automate it, and that's where we're testing right now. We're really working with BotKeeper to figure out, where does it excel, and then where do we have QuickBooks Online that we're still seeing some functionality inside of QuickBooks Online bank feeds that are really quite advanced, like being able to pull images in. So whenever you're coding transactions. But the thing that I loved about BotKeeper and why we, ultimately chose it, is at the end of the month, you have a summary of the transactions that were entered. So you can see what was entered by a bot, how much of it was automated, how much of it was the accounting firm, and then what percentage was the client. So, you've got some deep insights as to how much effort is going into that client.
That's great. So you can almost quantify like time savings, ROI, and in those contexts.
And I love it. I mean, I feel like a lot of the technologies that are here in that bookkeeping space, from what I've seen, they've got a lot of growth. that they're still in the process of. But we're just on the cutting edge of where these tools are going to take us. So I feel like accounting, bookkeeping is changing very rapidly, and that's one of the reasons why. Moving over to QuickBooks Online, this has been the operating system that we have used in our firm since the beginning. We've used QuickBooks and then QuickBooks Online, and now we're starting to incorporate some Xero in there. But QuickBooks Online has got a lot of features, and they've done a lot of machine learning from their users for years. So they are definitely ahead in some areas whenever it comes to review of the data, input of that data, so automation. So, I still say that is the place that we have the majority of our clients. Makers Hub, oh my gosh. So anybody who is in this place of offering accounts payable solutions to their clients, I'm going to say check out Makers Hub. They are doing some really cool things with being able to have AI empowered OCR abilities. So they're really doing a very quick analysis of any type of bill that's being looked at, scraping that data, pulling it off line by line. They can figure out if it's a inventory item or if it's an expense for shipping really quickly. The part that I find is a dazzler to the teams is the communication that is sent out to the vendor. So once there's a payment, there's actually a summary that comes along and says this payment was made, but here are all the bills or individual bill that was paid. So you've got some direct tie in there.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. So there's some really cool features that are built in here. And then Visory. So here's where I think that every accounting firm should be making sure that they've got the best in class. They've got something in place whenever it comes to security. Cybersecurity is one of those that, the IRS has given us some band-aids on how we are supposed to be operating our firms. When I talk to my peers, a lot of people are struggling with what does it mean to have a WISP in place? And that's where there's this partnership with Visory to say, I don't have to know all of the details. I need to know how to train my people and how to operate, but I can have a system that is, Visory who's in place to be able to manage the devices. And here's where the AI piece comes into place, where you're able to do the AI threat hunting. So to detect if there's an anomaly on one of my team members' computers, like have they clicked on something that they shouldn't have clicked on? And is there a ask of the data that's being brought in because we've got some type of malware? And that AI threat hunting can say, ooh, we don't trust this request of the data, so we're going to stop this action in place, and we're not going to send that that reply back to that request. So I know, Tammy, this is your area of expertise, so I'll pass from from what I know there over to you.
Oh, you are doing an excellent job, Liz. You know more than you think. Yeah, I mean, AI is incredibly helpful to cybersecurity, to IT in general, right? Like you mentioned, there's so many threats coming in from so many sources, and a lot of the tools that we use that do have the AI built in is they're able to use attacks and framework information that other people are experiencing as well, right? And we can very quickly backfill what those indicators of compromise might look like, right? We don't have to reinvent that wheel. We can use the information from, the greater universe to apply it to everyone's small business, right? We don't have to experience the pain. We can take those indicators of compromise, be able to find them, stop them, and have all that information much quicker than a human can process it. So that's the great piece of AI here with cybersecurity, and it's only going to get better.
And I think that's where the power of partnership comes in too, because Liz, do you have time to understand the trends and to understand when it's time to change cybersecurity approaches?
I am busy enough with the things I have to do that my answer is no. And I feel like, if I'm just dangling out here on my own, then I'm leaving myself, each one of my team members, and then each one of my clients at risk.
Yeah, so there's real power in partnership, and that's going to extend from economies of scale. So being able to secure enterprise grade tech that's going to be added to your cyber stack, that's going to protect you, protect your customers, protect your reputation. You've got that aspect of it. You've also got the aspect of having like a dedicated team. Tammy, how many people are on your team? And then we also have an outside SOC, so a security operations center that supports them.
Yeah, so we have 5 and I have another opening right now. So
Yeah,
a
so
lot
that's
of folks.
incredible. That is actually incredible. It's not normal in the industry for a managed service provider to necessarily have a security team that big. So, you know, being able to leverage that sort of knowledge and expertise in a partnership, it's the same reason that clients hire accountants, right? We don't know necessarily how to maximize our revenue and keep our business running. So that's why we bring in the Liz Scotts of the world.
Well, you know, my voice is just to say to my accounting peers that we've got to do something. You know, many of us, you know, are you aware of AI cybersecurity threats? I think that this is that big conversation that many of us are hearing what AI can do for accountants. And I kind of went through like why we're implementing some of this AI driven tech in our accounting firm. But then this is also a place where we've got to be aware of what's happening on the dark side of AI. So, you know, Sam, you've kind of shared before that just like there's accounting and bookkeeping firms that are serving clients, there's actually AI malicious intent businesses that are creating go ahead, cyber threat.
Yeah, no, you're on it. So it cropped up a couple of years ago, you know, when this really powerful kind of technology became generally available in 2022. We saw the rise of what's called ransomware-as-a-service, malware-as-a-service. So you've got people globally in these global networks that are writing code and then taking a piece of the proceed. So I write something really malicious. Tammy says, yeah, I want to deploy that. Tammy doesn't have to have any coding experience. Now she just has to follow some instructions. And if she happens to get some takers on it, right, then she might be paying 2, 3, 5% back to me. But I'm doing that thousands of times for, you know, other people are using my code. So yeah, we saw this ransomware as a service crop up, and I heard about it for the first time early in 2024, but it had been around already for at least a year. Tammy, you probably are more familiar.
Yeah, and I would say, like you said, it's been around a little earlier. So I would say the earlier stuff was a little more clunky. They were testing out a lot of their methodology and how can we perfect this. And then AI falls in their lap and they're like, "Hoo yeah, here we go." So that just takes a lot of this, makes it quicker, you know, more accurate, reliable, and you know, their profit margin goes way up. So it's going to continue to refine and get better from their point of view. But yeah, they've been testing it for a while, and it's pretty promising right now.
You know, one of the things that you know, there's the statistics on this screen that's talking about that personal attacks are part of what we all need to be aware of. And that's where I think that accountants are the most at risk. So we don't often think of ourselves as small firms that are going to be targeted by malicious activity, but because we have clients who are business owners, they have email, they have operations, so they need to be able to you know, have employees click on emails, and so it gets inside of their organization. Then that client of ours then reaches out to us, and they've got some type of you know, threat on their computer, and they're sending us emails. And I can give you, here's an actual scenario that happened. We had a client that we had told them, quit sending these kinds of things via email. It's not safe. And here's our portal. We're not going to be communicating with you in this way anymore. We were very strong about that. It was that same week that particular client came back and they said, oh, I've been hacked. You know, don't open any of my emails. And, we had already had an internal conversation about that particular client having bad hygiene, that we had, been already aware on our end, but their system was hacked. And this is where, a lot of us are now hearing about WISP. We've got to have that in place. This is where the IRS is then saying, okay, so the client is being affected, then the accountant is getting infected, and then the accountant is then sending bad information over to the IRS. And so, a lot of the tax preparers, that is why they had to put something in place with the WISP, is because the IRS was ultimately having these cyber attacks, and tax returns were being fraudulently created by these bad actors who had gotten information from the accountants about the clients and filed bad tax returns. They had hacked into the IRS because they were acting as if they were accountant, and they were able to get social security numbers. They were able to change bank account details. And so the IRS, their response to that was, accountants, you have to have good hygiene yourself in order to be able to submit tax returns to us, in order to work with clients. So there's a whole reason as to why the WISP concept came into play, is it was the IRS itself is being attacked, and it's coming from the accountants. And the accountants are being attacked because we are targets, many different ways. So we have to have something in place.
Yeah, and the IRS, in fact, for the last couple of years, I want to say it goes back to 2022, before the PTIN renewals could take place, you had to attest that you did, in fact, have a written information security plan. And I know a ton of tax practitioners that were just checking that box. That document did not exist yet. And I think one of the reasons for that is that it looked so scary. I mean, the template that the IRS had was overwhelming.
100%. And I think that even still today, a lot of accountants have got something in place, but is it enough? Because this is a moving target.
Well, they need to be updated regularly, right? So again, power partnership. I think this year we've helped at least 8 or 9 firms with WISP updates and doing a free security audit just to take a look at what they're doing and make some recommendations for enhancements. So certainly we're happy to do it, and I'm sure there's other options as well for some of that advice.
I love this Jedi that's here in the middle. It's like we've got the dark side of the force, and then we've got the light side. So you've got to be aware of both. So as accountants, we've got lots of technology that's emerging that is going to help us with our job. We also have the other side of this that's happening, that I would say is happening even faster, because accountants were terrible adopters. We're slow to change. There's some of us that there are early adopters, but I say for the most part, these cyber criminals are going to move way faster than we are. So that is why we've got to be aware of what's happening on, the side of AI that is driving some threats that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the denial of service attacks that is more recent, Tammy, is that email bombing, which is scripted, or it's bots. That's one of those bad actor attacks. Can you describe kind of what that is?
Yeah, it's if anybody remembers years ago, the old chain letters that you used to get, and it said, send this to whatever 70 or 700 friends, and you'd get all this mail in your post office box. It's very similar to that, except you are just going to be driven mad with this. So an email bomb is when your inbox, your email address, is just flooded with email, very quick junk. Usually what they're doing is they have this script that is signing you up for all of these newsletters. And so you're just getting these subscription replies, like, thousands per minute. And Visory was able to, to use some of our newer technology that we were testing out and be able to get this stopped pretty quickly for clients. But it was just using your standard tools was very, very difficult to stop it, right? Just spam filters, junk filters were just not strong enough to catch it. So as this is evolving, new stuff is coming out. I mean, literally, we saw it for the first time in 2024, and we see everything. So there's
So
always new stuff.
thousands of emails are just coming
Yeah.
in. You can't stop
Yeah.
them. And then you implemented an AI-driven tool that was able to recognize that this was a denial of service attack,
Yeah.
compromising this user's email, and then stop it. It just like no more of this is coming through. And it was
Yeah, it was pretty instant. It really was. And, you know, and again, you don't want to stop your good email, your business email. You don't want to have to change your email address. Like those are all really drastic things. So using this AI tool, it was able to see the bad stuff, you know, get it stopped and let your regular business email through. So
That's
that was
incredible.
great.
Yeah, I love that example of AI fighting some of these attacks. Well, let's keep us moving. I know we've gone on a few side roads, so we'll bring us back.
Yeah, AI in the hands of cyber criminals, the dark side. You know, like anything else, right? Any tool that's intended for good can be used by somebody with nefarious intentions, right? And just like it's making our lives easier, giving us quick access to information, you know, it's doing the same thing to cyber criminals, right? And I think, you know, if we can embrace that and know that, we know that that can happen, you know, that's half the battle there. You know, some of the things that come to mind for me are, we touched on it a little bit, AI tax fraud, right? You know, they're able to go out and capture PII information, that personal information that you need to be able to file your tax return. They're able to, you know, make fake licenses and things like that to be able to upload and prove their identity and take and file the return and get get the money redirected to their bank accounts. Text to voice. Sometimes you could be talking to an AI, you know, bot, right? These things respond. You could get a phone call. I've got, I don't know, I think I have just from this morning, I've got 2 voicemails on my phone. And they're a text to speech type generator. They'll leave me this nice voicemail, you know, saying, oh, we're getting back to you about your, you know, $80,000 loan that you applied for. And, you know, they want all kinds of information. And I get them multiple times per day. It's really frustrating, but, you know, it's just an AI bot, right? It's not a real person. Deep fake videos is another one. The phishing emails, right? I'm going to say, don't believe everything that you see, right? AI is helping these cyber criminals craft spear phishing campaigns, and spear phishing is where it's very targeted. Like they're saying, I'm going to target, you know, Liz Scott. And you know, there's so much personal information that we leave as footprints throughout the interwebs, right? Whether it's on social media apps or websites or, you know, business publications or LinkedIn, even our own websites. And the AI can gather all of this information, put all the data points together, and craft these super believable phishing emails that are very targeted. And they have a over 54% success rate, right? So that's pretty good, right? There, for every, you know, 2 that they send out, you know, at least one of those is going to be successful in somebody, you know, falling for it. So, you know, there's lots of different ways that they're using this to their advantage. And I think, you know, the big thing is being aware, right? And also knowing that, you know, what was once trusted information, like maybe an email from your client. You have a client that's been doing business with you for, you know, 20 years, and all of a sudden you get an email that is out of character for them. You know, it's very possible that they're hacked and their email is compromised. So you have to be able to, you know, be able to recognize kind of a trust but verify, right? Just because it came from someone that's a trusted person, you still need to verify that everything's good and that was really sent by them. So as that sophistication grows, you know, it really kind of puts the on the hacker's side of, you know, getting into your environment that much easier. So that's why all of these cybersecurity tools and products that Visory offers is very critical to be able to find this stuff before it gets in and gets a foothold.
You know, this is part of where you talk a lot about training, but this is where, you know, we talk to our team and we'll say these emails that come in, and if you don't feel like they're correct, look at the URL. Where are they coming from? Who's the at? So you can click on where are those emails coming from, and sometimes those are really good. So sometimes these bad actors will go in, they'll create, and they'll spend some time to create a really good from address, so that way it's hard to nail down. But you can definitely, even on the links that they are sending you, you can hover over those links and you can look to see what those URLs are before you click on those. So we just go through and we talk to each of the team members. Don't click on these things that are coming through. You know, a lot of the messages that we get are, you have an unpaid bill. Well, if a team member that doesn't normally pay bills is getting a you need to pay this bill, it's past due, a message, and here's the link to make sure that you catch up. You know, those are kind of clues to be able to pay attention to. So think before you act.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, especially if it's a link you didn't ask for, you know, if you're not expecting it, you didn't ask for it, then that should really get your, you know, your awareness up. And, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen if you just ignore it? You know, there's not too much. You know, like you said, if it's about an unpaid bill, if it's really true, somebody's going to be calling you and beating down your door, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are all great tips. Copying the link and dropping it into Word or something and inspecting it is another way to do that. And then tools. So there are tools that use user behavior analytics to do exactly what you were just talking about, Liz. Identifying that person never pays any bills, never gets invoices emailed to them. So there's a high probability that this is bad. Let's go ahead and quarantine it. So yeah, there's definitely some tech that can be put in place, but it all starts definitely with creating that culture of security and making sure that we're talking openly about tactics and behavior changes that can help prevent those breaches. So Mandy, I will not do as much justice to this story as you will. Since you're still on, do you want to tell it or do you want me to give it a go? All right. What do you think?
That's your answer. Oh,
Yeah, let me tell it. What story are we talking about, Sam?
This was the trial, the MDR trial that you had a customer on.
Oh, yes. So about, I guess back in October, I had been working with this client, trying to prove to them how important it was to have the next gen antivirus on their computer compared to the current just old, you know, the old antivirus. They were concerned that it was going to impede the way that they do their workflow, and it was going to be slow and clunky on their computer. So I got it approved to offer a trial to this company. So for 30 days, we put our MDR on this client's 10 endpoints, so that they could test it out just to show that it wasn't clunky. That was my purpose of having the trial, so that they could see it was a really lightweight agent and wasn't going to cause any issues with their workflow. 2 weeks into the trial, I just reach out to Tammy and say, hey, Tammy, just wanted to check in and see how things were going in on, you know, this trial. Has there been any issues? Lo and behold, this trial had already stopped like 10 ransomware attacks on this accounting firm. 6 that it actually had to start the remediation process. I think there was 3 of them. They were just benign. And 1 that we had to look into a little further. Should this firm had not opted to just do this trial with us, they would have had a ransomware attack on their firm. And it could have been catastrophic for them. I mean, they would have, it was a very large firm. They have 93 employees. They would have had to reach out to all of their clients and let them know. So it was actually just an unbelievable example. They were shocked, and I was actually shocked too, on how in 2 weeks, how this, you know, MDR actually save their firm and their reputation.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, just really incredible. So MDR is that managed detection and response. So that's where Tammy's team has some tools that are deployed. And the M in it, managed, means that they're cybersecurity professionals that are inspecting logs and looking at alerts. And the detection is AI looking at the behavior of all the processes that are running on your computer or on your network. And then the response is that automated remediation. And in most cases, a good quality managed detection and response tool, Tammy, they stop what, over 96, 97%. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then there's that extra 3% is where that partnership becomes really important.
You know, I mean, I would say to all of my accounting peers that are listening, here's why we can't just rely on whatever antivirus came on our computer. It's not going to be able to do that kind of detection to stop those types of attacks. And, you know, once upon a time, I had heard you had given a statistic that shared how many days malware can sit on your computer before
Oh,
you're
yeah.
even aware.
Yeah, where it sits dormant. Tammy, it's over 200, isn't it? Do you remember the?
I don't remember exactly, but it's a lot. And especially, and if they get into your email, a lot of times they will just silently sit and watch the traffic go by to find their, you know, their opportunity that they want to pounce on. And I would just say, you know, that new tactics sometimes require new tools, right? The stuff that we're doing today, you know, no one thought of and no one was really using 5 to 6 years ago, you know? As the threat landscape changes, you need to adopt those tools that can keep pace.
100%.
Which I think is a perfect segue into some of those practical tips that we said we were going to share. So I've got Tammy, I'll give my top three and then let you take it. So for me,
Okay.
what I always talk about, right? Multi-factor authentication, turn it on everywhere. That's the lowest hanging fruit that you have. It's going to be free in almost everything that you are using as a business. So just turn it on. LinkedIn, turn it on. Email, turn it on. Just make sure multi-factor authentication is everywhere. Tammy, you can talk about a better multi-factor. There's, what is it, adaptive? That's the...
Yeah, adaptive AI based MFA. And that's really going to be looking at like, you know, it's going to look at your tone. It's going to look at your style. It's going to look at how, you know, even your typing speed and things like that to determine, you know, is that you trying to log in? So it's going to use a lot of factors.
That's even beyond the innovative MFA multi-factor that we were seeing a few years ago, where like if I logged in Asheville, North Carolina, and then 15 minutes later my credentials are used in Seattle, Washington,
Yeah.
the MFA would be like, red light, don't pass go, right? This
Yeah.
doesn't seem real. You're talking about something even beyond that. So how fast
Yeah.
it's typing, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it, you know, in practical use, like I haven't used it, but man, imagine that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's almost like kind of like the retina scan, right? Everything is unique. Your typing speed and style and, you know, the tone of things really is going to be unique, almost like a fingerprint to each person. So that's pretty wild, I think.
That's awesome. So AI-driven managed detection and response. We already talked about the power of that. That's one of the other things that I recommend as a minimum baseline for absolutely every company that's in business, whether it's your bake shop down the road or a firm, right? We should have managed detection and response on any of those endpoints accessing company data. And then the other one, the of the three is that awareness training. So making sure that every employee is up to date and trained at least annually. I think that the experts are talking quarterly now, or what are you
It should
thinking?
be regular. It really should be a regular cadence. Annual is just not enough.
Yeah.
You want to keep it in front of your employees on a regular basis. Regular can be quarterly, it can be monthly, it can be every other month. But just like do something and put it out there so people can learn another concept and just keep it in front of them. That awareness is what really helps.
And we're not
And-
talking about hours of disruption, right?
No, no.
And
Not
you
at
know,
all.
one of the things, we keep it kind of informal in the firm. So when we'll have a threat that comes in, we'll just message each other in our team's chat to say, here we've seen this behavior, and this is something that we want to be aware of. Right
Mhm.
now, while it's a lot of times that accounting firms are talking to clients, it's things like making sure that they're aware of what to expect via email and what not to. So it doesn't have to be a formal conversation. It can just be a loose conversation of, hey, watch out,
Yeah.
I've seen this.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
then
Yep.
Tammy, if you want to take us home on this slide, I know we've got a little more content to get through, but we've got a checklist on here and we've got some stuff about backups.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, backups are always, important and really necessary should you need them, right? They're not something that you think about probably until you need them. But it's important to have it. So if you need it for that disaster recovery or business continuity, you can get back up and running again. This mentions penetration testing here. I think that is something that, if you're not doing, you do want to think about at least. And start with what you can, right? Because penetration testing is really going to look at those vulnerabilities and tell you if they're exploitable, kind of how bad are they. But if you can't get to that this year or next, I mean, there's some other practical things that you can do. Like Sam mentioned, the training, the phishing emails are really evolving faster than organizations' defenses, right? So we're kind of scrambling to keep up with that. And if as we get to the point that phishing emails look just like genuine correspondence, I mean, how can anyone like stay safe with that, right? So you have to really be aware of what's happening with the AI and what they're trying to get out of you, to be able to look at them and say, is this real? Am I expecting this? That sort of thing. And then, just what I would say too is, limit personal information where and when you can, because all of that information, especially the publicly available information, all can be put together to use in campaigns against you, your company, your clients. So the more that you can limit that, or even, subscribe to a personal data removal service, is going to help in the long run.
A great tip. Yeah, the personal information on social media. I mean, that's how the MGM breach in 2023 was
Yeah.
kicked off, through social engineering. Yeah. So what are we seeing as trends, Tammy?
Oh,
We
I think
touched on some. Yeah.
there's things coming I don't even know of, but like this quantum computing thing that's coming, that has the ability to really shake things up, right? It's going to have these quantum computing chips are going to have the speed and the processing power of something that we have not seen today. And so, there's a lot of things that are happening in the industry to sort of prepare for that. Putting some frameworks and some guardrails around those kinds of systems, because they really do have the ability to pretty much break through some of today's cybersecurity protections, right? Things like encryption. These computers are going to be able to crack that encryption, right? So there's some concern around perhaps hackers or criminals, sort of taking the data today and saving it for when the technology is able to crack that encryption. So just know that there are new things coming, and we need to start now, understand what we have today so that we can keep up with what's coming in the future. It's not going to stay stagnant for sure.
No, we're in a crazy time. Everything's evolving so rapidly, and that's driving regulatory change. We've seen some rules with the SEC that are guiding our registered investment advisors, those SEC regulated, other financial service institutions around the use of AI and making sure that it's being used in a safe and compliant way that's not being used to drive profitability for the investment firm, right? It's being used in a way where the investor is still acting as a fiduciary. And we've watched the SEC evolve over the past 10 to 12 years. We've watched those regulations evolve for that base. And I can say that the FTC is using their playbook. So accountants are being held to the same standards, not all of the same standards yet, but in the same pattern, like we've watched it. They said, hey, it'd be a really good idea if you had a multi-factor and some threat hunting. And then they said, hey, you know, it'd be a really good idea if you had a WISP. And then they said, oh, by the way, you absolutely have to have a WISP. And so it's only a matter of time before they say, not only do you have to have a WISP, but it has to be enforced, and you have to prove how you're enforcing those policies. So, you know, as we look at what the SEC is doing, I think we can predict that in time, you know, it might not be next year, it might be 5 years, might be 10 years from now, but we can anticipate that the IRS and FTC will adopt the same things that the SEC is enforcing for the other financial services.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that the regulations that they put in place are not just, they're not just pulling them out of the air.
Yeah.
It's because of a problem, right? They're there to solve a problem that someone else has experienced. So it's to protect data, it's to protect your clients and the industry. So they're there for a reason.
And do you think that there's a way for those regulations to happen ahead of issues? Like, can it be more proactive than reactive, or does it really have to be the way that it is now?
You know, I'd like to see it be more proactive. It seems to have really, the trend has been reactive. But I think as more people grasp this, and as it becomes just commonplace in the industry, I think you're going to start seeing it be, you know, like with the quantum computing, right? If they're not out ahead of this, we don't want to be reactive with that. We want to be proactive and know where the guardrails are before these systems start getting out, you know, into business use.
Well, and I think that we've got to think about the order of events. So, you know, the WISP is there because the IRS is being reactive, but that WISP for accountants is there to be proactive. And so if we think about the way that things are being implemented, it's there for a reason. And so if we're ahead of the game, then that's going to allow us to talk to our clients as that expert. It's going to allow us to protect our teams. It's going to allow us to make sure that if there was some type of fraudulent activity in place, we can say our team member was doing XYZ, and we can look back at their IP address and we can see what all they were doing, and we can be proactive in making sure that they weren't part of a threat. So, you know, whenever it comes to logging into the bank or the IRS, you know, we can have those things in place to be able to have systems that can audit check and to verify what team members were doing. So there's a lot of areas that if we think past what that one piece of documentation is stating that we have to have in place, it's really proactive for us.
And it can be your roadmap, right? It's your roadmap for
That's right.
how you're running your business.
Yep. And I love this here, this AI use policy. So, you know, I think everybody should scan this, get something in place. This is really just saying, how is your firm using AI? What are you doing? Do you have something that you're talking to your team members about, how they're allowed to use AI? So, you know, really just this use policy is, how do you want to conduct your business, and how do you want to allow team members to be using AI?
Yeah, because don't be fooled. Even if you haven't implemented AI in your firm, your team members are using AI. It's the bring your own AI phenomenon. Even if they're not talking to you about it, I guarantee that there are people in your firm that are using ChatGPT. They're asking it questions. So have a policy, have a conversation internally about what can and can't be input into a tool like that. Really, really important stuff. And we're up against the hour here. So I hope everybody got something out of it. We talked about a lot of topics, trends, and some practical things that you can do today, or at least put on your roadmap and start thinking about. Tammy, thank you so much. I love having you on these. You always bring such great insight. Liz, pleasure as always. Thank you for bringing your insight from the industry.
It's my pleasure to be here. And to all of my accountants, put something in place for cybersecurity.
If anyone wants to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out to us. We've got our contact info here, Inside Sales at Visory. Or if you know me, I see a lot of familiar names in the attendees list from over the years. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Thanks everybody for joining, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.